my sight, ugly girl!
The champagne glass shattered against the wall, missing Binta's head by inches. You think you can waltz into my establishment looking like asterisk that? Mrs. Choi's voice cut through the private room like a blade. My son deserves better than some cheap, ugly. Mother, Kin's voice was ice. Leave now. Binta didn't flinch. 25 years of surviving had taught her when to bend and when to stand tall. She met the older woman's fury with calm brown eyes, her light brown skin glowing under the dim lights of the exclusive lounge where she worked. Mrs. Choi's perfectly painted lips curled. Don't tell me you're defending this thing asterisk. Do you know who we are, what we do? She's beneath you, Kin, beneath this family. The woman swept from the room, her designer heels clicking a staccato rhythm of rage. The door slammed. Silence fell like snow. Binta finally exhaled, her hands steady as she began collecting glass shards. You should go after her. Why? Kin loosened his tie, watching her with those dark eyes that had first caught her attention 3 months ago when he'd stumbled into the club bleeding from a knife wound. She'd stitched him up in the back room without asking questions. He'd been coming back ever since. Because she's your mother, because she just called me ugly and I'm pretty sure she meant it as the nicest thing she said about me. Binta's laugh was bitter. Because this, whatever this is between us, it's temporary anyway. Is it? The question hung between them. Binta's heart kicked against her ribs, but she kept her face neutral. She'd learned young that hope was dangerous. Her mother had died hopping. Her father had vanished into hope. She'd survived by expecting nothing. You know it is. She stood, glass fragments clinking in her palm. You're a Choi. I'm a waitress who strips on weekends to pay for nursing school. Your mother's right about one thing, I don't belong in your world. Kin moved fast. One moment he was across the room, the next he had her wrist, his thumb pressing against her racing pulse. You saved my life. You've paid me back multiple times. She gestured at the designer bag he'd given her last week, the tuition check that had appeared in her locker, the expensive dinners she'd tried to refuse. We're even. We're not even close to even. His voice dropped. Do you know what you did that night? Do you know who I was running from? Binta pulled away. I don't want to know, that's the rule. You don't tell me about your business, I don't ask questions, we keep this. Simple. Nothing about you is simple, Binta. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Then again, and again. His expression shifted as he read the messages, something dark and dangerous sliding across his features. What is it? My mother just transferred $500,000 to Park Min-soo. The name meant nothing to Binta, but the amount made her stomach drop. That's a lot of money. It's a down payment, Kin's jaw clenched, for a hit. The room tilted. A hit like murder. Like murder. He was already moving toward the door. Stay here, lock this door, don't leave until I text you. Wait, who is she trying to kill? But Binta already knew. She could see it in the way Kin's shoulders tensed, in the protective fury radiating from him. It's me. Your mother put a hit on me. Kin turned back, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw fear in his eyes. Real, raw fear. My mother doesn't make threats, she makes examples. He cupped her face, his touch surprisingly gentle. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Trust, that dangerous word again. But looking into his eyes, Binta realized she'd been trusting him for months without admitting it. Every night he'd walked her to her car. Every time he'd sat in her section, a silent guardian against the handsy customers. Every moment he'd looked at her like she was something precious instead of disposable. I trust you. Then pack a bag. You're leaving Seoul tonight. I can't just leave. I have school, my job, my apartment. Do you want to live? The blunt question silenced her. Kin pulled out his phone, fingers flying over the screen. I'm sending you to someone even my mother won't touch. You'll be safe there until I fix this. And how exactly do you plan to fix your mother trying to murder me? His smile was cold and sharp. By giving her something she wants more than your death. Before Binta could ask what that meant, the door burst open. A man she didn't recognize stood there, weapon drawn and behind him. Mrs. Choi stepped into the room, and she wasn't alone. 3 more armed men flanked her, and her smile was triumphant. "Did you really think I wouldn't have you followed, Kin? Did you think I'd let you choose some foreign trash over your family's legacy?" She gestured, and the men moved forward. "Take her." Kin stepped in front of Binta. "Touch her, and you'll have to kill me too." "If that's what it takes," Mrs. Choi's voice was stone, "you're not the only son I have." The world seemed to stop. Binta's mind raced. Kin had never mentioned a brother. Never mentioned his mother was willing to kill her own child. Never mentioned just how deep this darkness went. And then Kin did something that changed everything. He dropped to his knees. "I'll marry her." The words exploded through the room like a grenade. Mrs. Choi's triumphant expression fractured. The armed men hesitated. Binta's heart stopped completely. "What did you say?" Mrs. Choi's voice was deadly quiet. Kin stayed on his knees, but his voice was steel. "I said I'll marry Lee Yuna, your precious alliance with the Lee family. The merger you've been pushing for 2 years, I'll do it, tonight if you want." He paused, and Binta saw his hands clench. In exchange, Binta walks away, untouched, alive, free. "Kin, no," Binta started, but he cut her off with a look that broke something inside her chest. Mrs. Choi's eyes narrowed, calculating. "You'd give up your little whore that easily." "She's not," Kin's voice cracked just slightly. "She deserves better than this life, better than me. Let her go, Mother, you win, you get everything you wanted." The older woman circled them like a predator, her designer dress whispering against the floor. Binta wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything but stand there while Kin sacrificed himself. But the guns trained on them made the choice clear. One wrong move and they'd both die. "You'll sign the contract tonight," Mrs. Choi finally said. "The wedding is in 1 week, and if you ever see this girl again, if you even speak her name, I'll kill her slowly enough that you'll hear every scream. Do we understand each other?" Kin's jaw worked. "Yes." "Say it properly." "Yes, Mother." Mrs. Choi snapped her fingers. "Get the girl out of my sight. Put her on the next flight to anywhere. Give her enough money to start over and make sure she understands. If she ever comes back to Seoul, if she ever tries to contact my son, she's dead." 2 men grabbed Binta's arms. She fought then, thrashing against their grip. "Let me go, Kin, you can't do this, you can't." He still wouldn't look at her. "Goodbye, Binta." The finality in those 2 words shattered her. They dragged her toward the door, and she watched Kin push himself to his feet, watched his mother place a possessive hand on his shoulder, watched the man she'd stupidly fallen for disappear behind a mask of cold indifference. "I hate you," she screamed, tears finally breaking free. "I hate you for making me care." The door slammed shut. 3 days later, Binta stood in a tiny apartment in Manila, staring at a duffel bag containing $200,000 in cash and a phone number she'd been told to use only in the most desperate emergency. She hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, had barely breathed. The money meant nothing. The safety meant nothing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kin on his knees, sacrificing everything for her survival. Her phone buzzed, a new number. Her hand shook as she opened the message. "The wedding is tomorrow. Lee Yuna arrived from Hong Kong tonight. Kin hasn't left his room in 3 days. Thought you should know. Jay." She didn't know who Jay was, didn't care. The message included a photo, Kin standing next to a stunning woman in an engagement photo shoot, his smile empty, his eyes dead. Binta threw the phone across the room. This was wrong. All of it was wrong. She'd spent her whole life running, surviving, accepting that she deserved scraps. Her mother had been a maid who'd loved the wrong man. Her father had been a diplomat who'd promised forever and delivered abandonment. She'd learned young that people like her didn't get happy endings. But Kin had looked at her like she was worth saving, like she was worth *choosing. And she'd let him trade himself for her freedom without a fight. "No," she whispered to the empty room. "No, I'm not doing this." She retrieved the phone, her mind racing. Mrs. Choi thought she'd won by sending Binta away. But the older woman had made one critical mistake. She'd assumed Binta was just some scared girl who'd take the money and run. She'd forgotten that Binta had survived 25 years by being smart, resourceful, and absolutely unwilling to quit. Binta pulled up the emergency number, her finger hovering over the call button. Whoever Jay was, they'd taken a risk sending that message, which meant there were cracks in Mrs. Choi's empire. Cracks Binta could exploit. She made the call. A man answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd contact me." "Who are you?" "Someone who thinks Kin's mother has had control of the Choi family business for far too long. Someone who believes her older son would be a much better leader." A pause. "And someone who knows you stitched up Kin 3 months ago after his brother tried to kill him." Binta's blood ran cold. His brother. "Did Kin never tell you? How fascinating. Yes, Kin has an older brother, Choi D-young, Mrs. Choi's favorite, her heir apparent, and the man she's been protecting for years despite his instabilities." The voice turned dark. "D-young doesn't like competition. That night you saved Kin, D-young had ordered the hit himself with mother's blessing." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. Mrs. Choi hadn't just been protecting some dynasty, she'd been protecting her firstborn's claim to power. Kin was the spare, the threat, the son who'd become too competent to ignore. "What do you want from me?" Binta asked. "I want you to come back to Seoul. I want you to stop that wedding. And I want you to help me expose exactly what D-young has been doing with the family's resources." The man's voice hardened. "Because if Kin marries Lee Yuna tomorrow, he'll be dead within a month. D-young won't tolerate the Lee alliance strengthening Kin's position." "You're asking me to walk into a death trap." "I'm offering you a chance to save the man you love and destroy the people who think your life is disposable." A beat. "Question is, are you brave enough to take it?" Binta looked at the duffel bag of blood money, at the photo of Kin's empty eyes, at her own reflection in the darkened window. She'd spent her whole life being told she wasn't enough, wasn't pretty enough, wasn't wealthy enough, wasn't worthy enough. Time to prove them all wrong. "Book me on the next flight to Seoul," she said, "and tell me everything about Choi D-young." The cathedral was a monument to excess. Crystal chandeliers, imported flowers, enough security to guard a presidential summit. Binta watched from across the street, disguised in a black wig and oversized sunglasses, her heart hammering. "You're sure about this?" Jay, whose real name was Young Min-ho, Kin's childhood friend and former head of security, stood beside her. "Once you walk in there, there's no walking back out unless we succeed." "I'm sure." She wasn't sure of anything except that letting Kin marry Lee Yuna while his brother plotted murder was unacceptable. The past 18 hours had been a crash course in the Choi family's darkness. D-young wasn't just unstable. He was a sadist who'd built a side empire of human trafficking, drug running, and contract killings that even Mrs. Choi didn't fully know about, or chose not to know. "The files are uploaded," Binta asked. Min-ho nodded. "Everything. Bank transfers, shipment records, photos of the warehouse in Incheon. The second you give the signal, it goes live to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency in South Korea." He paused. "But Binta, D-young has people everywhere. If he realizes what we're doing before the evidence drops, he'll kill everyone in that cathedral to cover it up." "Then we better make sure he doesn't realize." They'd planned this carefully. Binta would enter through the service entrance using Min-ho's access codes. She'd make her way to the bride's preparation room where Lee Yuna was getting ready. And then, what if she refuses to help? Min-ho asked the question that had kept Binta awake all night. "Then I improvise." She crossed the street, pulse racing. The service entrance was chaos, caterers rushing in with final preparations, florists adjusting arrangements, staff shouting in Korean. Binta slipped through, her waitress skills making her invisible among the workers. The preparation room was on the 3rd floor. She took the back stairs, avoiding cameras, her mouth dry. Everything depended on Lee Yuna being who Min-ho's intelligence suggested, a woman trapped in an arrangement she didn't want, with secrets of her own. 2 guards stood outside the room. Binta's stomach dropped until one of them nodded slightly. Minho's people. They let her pass without a word. Inside, Lee Yuna sat before an ornate mirror, already dressed in a wedding gown that probably cost more than Binta's entire life. She was breathtaking, delicate features, perfect posture, the kind of beauty that seemed carved from ice. She met Binta's eyes in the mirror without surprise. "You must be the waitress," Yuna said in perfect English, her voice cultured and cold. "I wondered if you'd have the courage to show up." Binta removed her sunglasses. "You knew I was coming." "Minho contacted me 2 days ago. He thought I might be interested in avoiding marriage to a man who's clearly in love with someone else." Yuna turned, and Binta saw something unexpected in her eyes, pain. "What he didn't mention was that you'd be foolish enough to return to a city where there's a price on your head." "The price on my head doesn't matter if Kin dies." "Noble, stupid, but noble." Yuna stood, the dress rustling. "You should know that I have no intention of marrying Kin. This engagement was forced on me by my father, who owes Mrs. Choi several favors of the illegal variety. I've been planning my own escape." Hope flared. "Then help me stop this." "Why would I? If I help you, my father will be ruined when Mrs. Choi turns on him. My family will lose everything." "Your family will lose everything anyway." Binta pulled out her phone, showing Yuna the files Minho had compiled. "Di-young is out of control. He's bleeding the family business dry to fund his own operations. When it collapses, and it will collapse, Mrs. Choi will throw everyone under the bus to save herself and her favorite son, including your father." Yuna's face paled as she scrolled through the evidence. "My God, does Kin know about this?" "Kin knows his brother tried to kill him. He doesn't know the full extent of Di-young's operation." Binta's voice cracked. "Mrs. Choi has kept him deliberately blind because the moment Kin finds out, he'll do something that forces her to choose between her sons, and she's already chosen. She'll choose Di-young. Every time." Yuna was quiet for a long moment, her fingers trembling against the phone. When she looked up, her Ice Queen facade had cracked. "I had a sister. 3 years ago, she disappeared. My father said she'd run away, eloped with some boy, but I never believed it." Her voice hardened. "There's a photo in your files, a warehouse manifest. One of the shipping containers has a notation, YL19. Binta's blood froze. Yuna Lee 2019, the year her sister disappeared. "I'm going to help you," Yuna said quietly. "Not for Kin, not for you, for my sister and every other girl Di-young has destroyed. But we do this my way." "What's your way?" Yuna's smile was sharp as broken glass. "We give them a wedding they'll never forget." 20 minutes later, Binta stood hidden in the cathedral's upper gallery, watching guests fill the pews below. Seoul's elite, politicians, business magnates, criminals in expensive suits, all of them complicit in the rot. Her phone buzzed, in position. "Why?" The ceremony began. Kin entered from the side, his face a mask Binta could finally read. He wasn't just resigned, he was hollow, dead inside, going through motions because staying alive meant he could protect the people he loved from afar. The music swelled. Lee Yuna appeared at the cathedral entrance, and a collective gasp went through the crowd. She wore her wedding dress, but in her hands, instead of a bouquet, she carried a microphone. "Good afternoon," Yuna's voice echoed through the space, amplified by the cathedral's sound system. "Thank you all for attending what I'm told should be the social event of the season. However, there's been a slight change of plans." Mrs. Choi stood from her seat in the front row. "What is the meaning of?" "Sit down, Mrs. Choi. You'll want to hear this." Yuna's smile was serene. "You see, I've recently learned some fascinating information about the Choi family business, specifically about your eldest son's extracurricular activities." The screens meant for displaying wedding photos flickered to life. Bank records appeared, shipping manifests, surveillance photos of warehouses, and then, worse, photos that made several guests gasp aloud. Kin's head snapped up, his eyes widening as he processed what he was seeing. Di-young shot to his feet in the second row. Turn it off now." But Minho's people controlled the system. The evidence kept rolling, each revelation more damning than the last. My sister was 19 when she disappeared, Yuna continued, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. I have evidence that she was trafficked through Choi De-young's network. She's one of 43 women who vanished in the past 4 years alone. Mrs. Choi had gone sheet white. This is a lie, a conspiracy. Then explain the money trail leading directly to your personal accounts, Mrs. Choi. Explain why you've been covering up your son's crimes for years. Yuna turned to face her. Explain why you were willing to sacrifice Kin, your own son, to protect a monster. The cathedral doors burst open. Police flooded in, led by investigators Binta recognized from the news, the organized crime unit that had been trying to crack the Choi family for a decade. Chaos erupted. Guests scrambled for exits. De-young pulled a weapon. And Kin. Kin moved like lightning, closing the distance between him and his brother before anyone could react. The gun went off, the shot echoing through the cathedral. Screams erupted. Binta's heart stopped. But Kin was still standing. He'd grabbed De-young's wrist, twisting it upward so the bullet shattered a chandelier instead of finding flesh. Glass rained down as the brothers grappled, years of hatred finally exploding into violence. You should have died that night, De-young snarled, landing a vicious punch to Kin's ribs. You should have stayed the weak little brother who knew his place. Kin didn't respond with words. His fist connected with De-young's jaw, spinning him backward. You trafficked innocent women. You built an empire on their suffering. His voice was deadly calm, even as blood dripped from his split lip. You're not my brother, you're a disease. Mrs. Choi screamed for security, but Min-ho's people had already secured the exits. The police were moving through the crowd, arresting associates whose faces had appeared in the leaked files. De-young laughed, a wild sound. You think you've won? Mother will protect me. She always protects me. She'll bury this, bury all of you. No, Mrs. Choi's voice cut through the chaos. She stood perfectly still, her face carved from stone. No, De-young, not this time. Everyone froze. De-young's expression shifted from rage to confusion to dawning horror. Mother, you've become uncontrollable, sloppy. Mrs. Choi's voice was ice. I protected you because you were useful, because you were supposed to lead this family into the future, but you've endangered everything I built. She turned to the police. I'll cooperate fully with your investigation. In exchange for immunity, I can provide evidence of every operation De-young ran without family sanction. Binta felt sick. Even now, even caught, Mrs. Choi was playing the game, sacrificing her firstborn to save herself. You're throwing me away, De-young's voice cracked. After everything I did for you, everything I became because you demanded it. You became a liability. Mrs. Choi didn't even look at him as the police moved in. Take him. As they dragged De-young away, his screams echoing off the cathedral walls, Kin finally turned. His eyes swept the upper gallery, searching, finding. Binta stepped from the shadows. The look on his face, shock, joy, terror, rage, nearly broke her. He started moving toward the stairs leading up to her, but Mrs. Choi's voice stopped him. Don't you dare. The older woman's composure was cracking. Don't you dare go to her, not after what I sacrificed. Kin turned slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried through the cathedral. What you sacrificed? You sacrificed nothing, Mother. You protected a monster, threatened an innocent woman, and tried to sell me like property. He stripped off his jacket, letting it fall to the marble floor. I'm done. Done with this family. Done with your games. Done pretending any of this was ever about loyalty or honor. You walk away now, you lose everything. Your inheritance, your name, your place. Good. Kin's smile was cold. Keep it all. It's built on blood and suffering anyway. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time. Binta's breath caught as he reached her, his hands framing her face like she was something precious and fragile. You came back, he whispered. You absolute fool, you came back. You gave up everything for me, her voice broke. Did you really think I'd just accept that? I thought I was protecting you. I don't need protection, I need. He kissed her, desperate, fierce, tasting of blood and freedom. Binta's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, pouring 3 months of unspoken feelings into the connection. When they broke apart, the cathedral had nearly emptied. Police were processing the scene. Yuna stood near the altar, speaking with investigators, her wedding dress ghostly in the dim light. Minho appeared at the gallery entrance. "We need to move. Mrs. Choi's already making calls. She'll spin this to minimize her involvement, and she's dangerous when cornered." "Let her spin." Kin kept his arm around Binta. "We have evidence, witnesses, and I'll testify against her myself if necessary." "About that," Minho's expression was grim. "There's something you should know. Your mother didn't just protect Di-young out of favoritism." Kin tensed. "What are you talking about?" "Di-young isn't your father's biological son. Your mother had an affair years before you were born, with Park Jae-hun." The name made Kin go rigid. The councilman, the one who's been blocking organized crime investigations for years. "The same. Park has been protecting Di-young because Di-young is his son. And your mother's been protecting both of them because if the truth came out, it would destroy her reputation and Park's political career." Minho pulled out his phone. "I found DNA tests in your mother's private safe. She's known the whole time." Binta felt Kin shaking, rage or shock or both. "So she let me believe Di-young was my brother. Let me grow up in his shadow. Let him try to kill me." "To protect her secret," Minho finished quietly. "I'm sorry, Kin." Kin was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. "Does he know? Does Park know?" "I think he's always known." "Then we burn them both." Kin's eyes were dark. "Release the DNA tests. Let the world see exactly what kind of people run this city." "Kin," Binta touched his face, drawing his gaze. "Are you sure? Once that information is public, there's no taking it back. Your family name will be—" "My family name means nothing to me anymore." He covered her hand with his. "You asked what I need. I need to end this. Completely. No more secrets, no more games, no more innocent people getting destroyed." His jaw clenched. "And then I need to get as far away from this life as possible." Yuna appeared behind Minho, her dress torn and dirty now. "The police want statements from all of us. It's going to be a long night." "After," Binta said, "after we finish this, where will you go?" Kin looked at her, really looked at her, and something vulnerable flickered across his face. "Wherever you are. If you'll have me, I know I come with baggage and danger and—" "Manila," she interrupted. "I have an apartment there. It's small and nothing fancy, but—" "It's perfect." His smile was real for the first time all night. "We'll start over, both of us. New names, new lives, no Mafia, no." The explosion cut him off. The cathedral's east wall erupted in flame and debris. The blast waved through them backward, Kin's body covering Binta's as stone and glass rained down. Screams echoed. Smoke filled the air. Through the ringing in her ears, Binta heard Minho shouting into his phone. "It's Park! Park Jae-hun just ordered a strike on the cathedral. He's trying to eliminate everyone who knows about Di-young." Kin pulled Binta to her feet, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. "We need to move, now." But as they turned toward the exit, a figure emerged from the smoke. Mrs. Choi, her perfect composure finally shattered, held a gun with steady hands. And it was pointed directly at Binta. "This is your fault," the older woman said, her voice eerily calm. "All of this, my son, my legacy, everything destroyed because you couldn't stay away." Kin stepped in front of Binta. "Mother, don't." "Move aside, Kin." "No." Mrs. Choi's finger tightened on the trigger. "Then I'll shoot through you to get to her." Time crystallized. Binta saw everything with razor clarity, the madness in Mrs. Choi's eyes, the way Kin's body tensed to spring forward, the shadows moving in the smoke behind them. Minho raising his own weapon. Yuna frozen in horror. The gun fired. But the shot went wide, sparking off stone as someone tackled Mrs. Choi from the side. The woman who'd appeared from nowhere was small, dressed in tactical gear, moving with lethal precision. She disarmed Mrs. Choi in 2 moves and had her face down on the debris-strewn floor in 3. "Agent Han, NIS." The woman flashed credentials at the stunned group. "We've been surveilling the Choi family for 8 months. Park Jae-hun just made the mistake of ordering a terrorist attack on a building full of witnesses and police officers." She hauled Mrs. Choi up. "You're all under protective custody until we can secure the area." More agents poured in, securing exits and checking for secondary devices. Binta's legs nearly gave out, adrenaline crash hitting hard. Kin caught her, his hands shaking. His voice broke. "I thought she was going to." "I know." Binta pressed her face against his chest, feeling his racing heartbeat. "I know." They were separated for processing, hours of statements, medical checks, paperwork. By the time Binta was cleared, dawn was breaking over Seoul. She found Kin in a waiting room, staring at nothing. "Minho told me Park Jae-hun was arrested trying to flee to Beijing," he said quietly. "He's rolling on everyone. The councilmen he bribed, the judges he owned, the police captains on his payroll. Half of Seoul's government is going down. And your mother. Charged with conspiracy, obstruction, accessory to human trafficking. Her lawyers are already working on a deal, but..." He rubbed his face. "She's going to prison. Years, probably. Maybe decades if they can connect her to everything Di-young did." Binta sat beside him. "How do you feel?" "I don't know, relieved, angry, free." He laughed bitterly. "I should feel something. She's my mother, but all I feel is empty. Like the past 30 years were just preparation for this moment, and now that it's here, I don't know what comes next." "Manila comes next." Binta took his hand. "We both get on a plane, disappear for a while, figure out who we are when we're not running or fighting or surviving." He turned to her, searching her face. "You still want that, after seeing what my family is, after almost dying because of me." "I almost died because your mother is a monster who values power over people. That's not on you, Kin." She squeezed his fingers. "And yes, I still want that. I want mornings where the biggest crisis is burnt coffee. I want to finish nursing school. I want to learn Korean properly instead of just ordering food. I want a normal life. With you, if you want the same." His kiss was soft this time, gentle, full of promise instead of desperation. When they broke apart, his eyes were wet. "I've never wanted anything more." 3 weeks later, Binta stood in her Manila apartment, unpacking boxes. Kin was at the market buying groceries, still marveling at the simple act of walking through crowds without looking over his shoulder. The past weeks had been surreal. News of the Choi family's collapse had dominated headlines. Di-young and Park Jae-hun were in maximum security, awaiting trial. Mrs. Choi had taken a plea deal, testimony in exchange for reduced sentencing. Minho had disappeared, witness protection, Kin suspected, though he'd left a note promising to resurface when it was safe. And Lee Yuna. Yuna had used her testimony and the evidence she'd helped expose to launch a foundation for trafficking victims. She'd called Binta once, her voice stronger than it had been in the cathedral. "They found my sister. She's alive, in Thailand at a recovery center." Yuna had wept openly. "Because of what you did, what we did, 23 women recovered so far with more leads every day." Now Binta's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You should turn on the news." "Why?" Curious, Binta switched on the television. A breaking news banner scrolled across the screen. "Shocking development in Choi case. Evidence suggests younger son was framed." Her stomach dropped. She turned up the volume. Newly discovered evidence indicating that Kin Choi may have been systematically set up by his brother and mother over the past 5 years. Financial records show money from Di-young's illegal operations was deliberately funneled through accounts in Kin's name. Furthermore, several witnesses have come forward claiming Mrs. Choi ordered them to testify that Kin was aware of and participating in criminal activities, when in fact. The door opened. Kin entered with grocery bags, took one look at her face, and went still. "What happened?" Binta turned the TV toward him. They watched in silence as the report detailed how Kin had been the scapegoat all along. How his mother had been preparing to sacrifice him if Di-young's empire ever came to light. How the business decisions he'd been blamed for were actually manufactured evidence. Agent Han is recommending all charges against Kim Choi be dropped and his assets, which were frozen during the investigation, be returned immediately, the reporter concluded. In addition, there are calls for formal apologies and compensation for. Kim switched off the TV. His face was unreadable. Kim, I don't want it. His voice was flat. The money, the apologies, any of it, it's all tainted. Everything connected to that family is poison. It's your inheritance. Your father's legitimate businesses were separate from what Di-young and your mother did. You could use that money to help people, start over properly. I said no. He set down the groceries with shaking hands. The moment I take that money, I'm back in their world. There will be expectations, obligations, people trying to use me to rebuild what fell apart. I can't. His voice cracked. I can't go back to that, Binta. I can't. She understood. The money represented everything he'd escaped. But she also saw the fear in his eyes, fear that without resources he was vulnerable, that they both were. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Another unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Miss Binta. The voice was male, older, speaking careful English. My name is Choi Jinwoo. I was Kin's father's lawyer and closest friend. I've been trying to reach my godson for weeks, but he's changed his number. Binta put it on speaker. He's here. A long exhale of relief. Thank God. Kin, if you're listening, your father left a separate trust for you, something your mother never knew about. He suspected her infidelity years before he died. He suspected what Di-young was becoming. So he protected assets she couldn't touch, couldn't use, couldn't taint with her schemes. Kin moved closer to the phone. His expression wary. Uncle Jinwoo. It's me, boy. I've been holding this trust for 10 years, waiting for the day you'd be free of her influence. It's not the family fortune. That's tied up in legal proceedings. But it's enough. $5 million in clean money, invested internationally, completely separate from any Choi family operations. Silence. Binta watched emotions flicker across Kin's face. Shock, grief, something like hope. Why? Kin finally asked. Why did he hide it from me? Because he knew your mother would have found a way to control it if you'd known. Your father loved you, Kin. He was trying to give you a way out, even after death. A pause. The trust was set up with one condition. You can only access it if you're living outside Korea under your own name, not hiding, not using an alias. Your father wanted you free, but not running. He wanted you to live openly, honestly, as yourself. Kin sank onto the couch, his face in his hands. Binta sat beside him, her arm around his shoulders as quiet sobs shook his frame. Years of pain, betrayal, and suffocating control finally breaking loose. There's more, Jinwoo said gently. Your father left letters, one for you, one for the woman you'd eventually choose to build a life with. He wrote them 6 months before he died, when he knew the cancer would take him. He said, the older man's voice wavered. He said he hoped you'd find someone strong enough to stand beside you when everything fell apart. Someone who'd see you, not the family name or the money or the power. Binta felt tears slip down her own cheeks. I'd like to meet you both, Jinwoo continued. When you're ready, to give you the letters, help you access the trust, and tell you stories about your father that your mother never let him share. He was a good man trapped in a bad marriage, and he wanted better for you. Kin raised his head, his eyes red but clearer than Binta had ever seen them. Uncle Jinwoo, thank you for keeping his secret all these years. It was my honor. A smile in the older man's voice. Your father would be proud of you, Kin, for walking away, for choosing love over power, for surviving your mother's poison. After they hung up, Kin and Binta sat in silence, processing everything. Finally, he turned to her. My father left a letter for you, for the woman I'd choose. He laughed wetly. He never even met you, but somehow he knew. Knew what? That I'd need someone extraordinary to save me. Kin cupped her face. That I'd be lucky enough to find you. They held each other as Manila's afternoon rain started, washing the city clean. For the first time in his life, Kin wasn't looking over his shoulder, wasn't calculating threats or planning escapes. He was just present. What do we do now? Binta asked. We read the letters, we meet Uncle Jinwoo, we accept the gift my father left us. Kin pulled back to look at her. And then we decide what kind of life we want to build, together. No more running, no more hiding, just us figuring it out as we go. It sounded perfect, simple, everything Binta had never let herself hope for. But that night, as Kin slept beside her, Binta's phone lit up with a message that made her blood freeze. Your mother didn't die when you were 7. She's alive, and she's been looking for you. Anonymous. Attached was a photo, a woman with light brown skin and familiar eyes, standing outside Binta's apartment building. Watching. Waiting. Binta didn't sleep. She stared at the photo until her eyes burned, memorizing every detail. The woman's posture, the way she stood in the shadows, the way her hand rested against the building wall like she was steadying herself. Like she was afraid. It couldn't be real. Binta's mother had died of pneumonia when Binta was 7. She remembered the funeral, small, cheap, attended by 3 people. She remembered the social worker who'd taken her to the first of many foster homes. She remembered years of believing she was completely alone. But those eyes in the photo, she'd seen them in mirrors her whole life. At dawn, Kin stirred beside her. You didn't sleep. I need to tell you something. Binta showed him the message. His expression shifted from groggy to alert in seconds. When did this come? 3 hours ago. I've been trying to figure out if it's real or someone trying to manipulate us. After everything with your family. We assume threat until proven otherwise. Kin was already up, pulling on clothes. That photo was taken from inside the building's courtyard. Whoever sent this has been watching us, closely. Fear spiked through her. You think it's connected to your mother, or Di-young? I don't know, but we're not waiting to find out. He grabbed his phone. I'm calling Uncle Jinwoo. He has security resources, people we can trust. While Kin made the call, Binta studied the photo again. Something about the woman's body language nagged at her. She wasn't lurking like a threat. She was hesitating like someone who wanted to approach but didn't know how. Like someone who'd been searching for 20 years and finally found what she'd lost. Jinwoo is sending a team, Kin said, ending the call. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Until then, we stay inside, away from windows. Kin, Binta's voice was steady despite her racing heart. What if it's really her? What if my mother is alive? Then we find out why she let you believe she was dead for 18 years. His jaw clenched. And we find out who sent that message and why they're playing games instead of just facilitating a reunion. The why was what terrified her. Nothing in their lives had been straightforward. Every revelation came with blood and betrayal attached. 15 minutes later, Binta's phone rang. The same unknown number. She answered on speaker. Who is this? My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I work with a nonprofit that helps women escape trafficking situations and rebuild their lives. The woman's voice was American, calm, professional. I've been your mother's caseworker for 3 years. She's been looking for you since she escaped her captors in 2019. The room tilted. Kin steadied Binta as she struggled to process the words. Captors, Binta's voice came out strangled. Your mother was trafficked when you were 7. She didn't die, she was taken, sold to a syndicate operating in West Africa, then moved to Southeast Asia. It took her 15 years to escape, and another 3 to be stable enough to begin searching for you. Dr. Chen paused. I'm sorry to deliver this news so abruptly, but your mother saw you on the news. The coverage of the Choi family case showed you briefly during a crowd scene outside the courthouse. She recognized you immediately. Binta couldn't breathe. 15 years. Her mother had been enslaved for 15 years while Binta grew up alone, believing she'd died. Why the cryptic message? Kin demanded. Why not just arrange a proper meeting? Because 3 days ago, someone tried to abduct your mother from her recovery facility. We've been in lockdown since, trying to determine who's targeting her and why. Dr. Chen's voice tightened. Then we discovered the connection. Your mother was originally trafficked by a small operation in Lagos. That operation was later absorbed by a larger network, Choi Di-young's network. Ice flooded Binta's veins. No, that's not. I'm sorry, your mother was one of Di-young's victims. When she saw you associated with the Choi family on the news, she panicked. She thought you were in danger. She thought they might have. Dr. Chen stopped. She thought history was repeating itself. Kin's face had gone ashen. Di-young's operation went back that far. Further, we're working with international agencies to map the full network. It spanned 2 decades and 4 continents. Your mother's case is helping us identify other victims, but it also means she's a target. The remnants of Di-young's organization want her silenced before she can testify. Where is she now? Binta forced the words out. Is she safe? She's in protective custody at an undisclosed location. We moved her immediately after the abduction attempt. But Miss Binta, she wants to see you. She's desperate to see you. That's why she came to your building yesterday, even though we'd told her it was too dangerous. She couldn't wait anymore. Tears blurred Binta's vision. 18 years of grief and abandonment reframing themselves into horror. Her mother hadn't left her. Her mother had been stolen. How do we know this is real? Kin's voice was hard, protective. Show us proof. A moment later, Binta's phone chimed with an incoming file. A video. The woman from the photo sat in a sparse room, her hands folded in her lap. She was older, worn, her light brown skin marked with scars. But her eyes, those were Binta's eyes. My baby girl. Her voice was rough, accented with layers of languages Binta didn't recognize. I don't know if you'll ever see this, I don't know if you'll believe it's really me, but I need you to know I never stopped fighting to get back to you. Every day for 15 years I survived because I had to find you again. She wiped her eyes. You were 7 years old. You loved drawing pictures of birds. Your favorite food was my jollof rice. You had a stuffed rabbit named Coco. And you used to tell me you'd be a doctor someday, so you could fix everyone who was hurt. Binta's sobs came in gasps. Those details. No one knew those details. The stuffed rabbit had been lost in the foster system. The dream of being a doctor had shifted to nursing when money got tight. But those memories were real, precious hers. It's her, Binta choked out. That's my mother. Kin pulled her close, his own eyes wet. Then we get her somewhere safe, permanently. That's why I'm calling, Dr. Chen said. Mr. Choi, we know about your father's trust. We know you have resources now. Your mother needs a secure location where she can recover and where both of you can reconnect safely. We can arrange protection, counseling, whatever you need, but we need your help. The nonprofit's funds are limited, and the threats against her are very real. Done, Kin didn't hesitate. Whatever it costs, whatever she needs, tell us what to do. Over the next hour, they coordinated with Dr. Chen and Jinwoo's security team. The plan was complex. Move Binta's mother from her current location to a secure property in Japan, neutral territory where both Choi and Di-young's remaining associates would have limited reach. Binta and Kin would follow once the location was confirmed safe. As they packed, Binta's hands wouldn't stop shaking. What if we can't protect her? What if they find her again? They won't. Kin's voice was steel. I grew up in that world. I know how these people think, how they operate. We'll have professional security, multiple layers of protection, contingency plans. Your mother survived 15 years of hell. We're not letting anyone touch her now. Why are you doing this? You could walk away. Use your father's money to disappear, live quietly. Instead, you're putting yourself at risk for someone you've never met. Kin stopped packing, turning to face her fully. Because she's your mother. Because Di-young stole her from you the same way my family tried to steal your future from you. Because I have the power to help, and I'll be damned if I waste it. He stepped closer. And because I love you. Your pain is my pain. Your family is my family. That's what choosing each other means. The words settled into Binta's chest, solid and warm. I love you too. They held each other in the afternoon light, Manila bustling outside their window, their whole world shifting again. But this time the shift felt different. Not destruction, but reconstruction. Not losing, but finding. 3 days later, Binta stood in a garden in Kyoto, watching a woman approach down a stone path. Her mother moved slowly, hesitantly, like she was afraid this was a dream that would shatter. Binta felt the same fear, the same desperate hope. They stopped 3 feet apart. Binta, her mother's voice broke. My Binta, you're so grown, so beautiful, so alive. Mama, the word Binta hadn't spoken in 18 years tumbled out. You came back. I never stopped trying to come back. They collapsed into each other, crying, holding on like they'd both drown if they let go. Years of grief and loss and survival poured out between them. Kin watched from the house with Dr. Chen, giving them privacy, giving them time. When they finally pulled apart, Binta's mother cupped her face. I missed everything, your whole life. I'm so sorry. You survived. That's what matters. You survived and you found me. I heard what you did, how you took down the Choi family, exposed Di-young. Her mother's expression was fierce with pride. My daughter, the warrior, the healer, everything I hoped you'd become. I'm not finished with school yet, still just a waitress trying to. You're extraordinary. Her mother squeezed her hands. And that man watching from the window, the one who arranged all this, he looks at you like you hung the stars. Binta glanced back at Kin, who raised a hand in acknowledgement. He's complicated, but good, really good. Complicated good is better than simple bad. Her mother smiled, the expression transforming her worn face. Bring him here. I want to meet the man who loves my daughter enough to fight monsters for her. As Binta waved Kin over, Dr. Chen approached her mother with a tablet. Mrs. Akaffer, the prosecutors want to schedule your testimony for the International Tribunal. The evidence you've provided has helped identify 47 other victims so far. If you're willing to testify, it could lead to hundreds more. Her mother's face hardened. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. Every face, every location, every horror. Those men destroyed enough lives. It ends now. Kin reached them, bowing respectfully to Binta's mother. Mrs. Akaffer, it's an honor to meet you. Call me Amara. She studied him with sharp eyes. You're Choi Jin-soo's son, the one who walked away from everything. Yes, ma'am. Good. Power corrupts, and that family had too much of both. Amara's expression softened. But Dr. Chen tells me you're using your father's money to help trafficking survivors, funding safe houses, recovery programs, legal support. Kin looked surprised. Yes, it seemed like the right thing to do, to turn something tainted into something healing. Then you're not just good, you're wise. Amara took both their hands, joining them together. My daughter deserves someone wise, someone who understands that surviving isn't the same as living, and that love means fighting for each other even when it's hard. Binta felt tears threatening again. Mama. Hush, let me be your mother for a moment. I've waited 18 years. Amara's voice strengthened. You two have been through fire, you've earned your happiness, but happiness isn't passive, it's active. It's choosing each other every day, protecting what you've built, fighting for your peace. We will, Kin promised. I swear it. As the sun set over Kyoto, painting the garden gold and amber, they sat together, 3 survivors, 3 fighters, 3 people who'd lost everything and somehow found each other. Dr. Chen brought tea. Security patrolled the perimeter. Inside the house, Jinwoo was on the phone coordinating the next phase of their protection. But in that moment, in that garden, they were simply people who'd chosen to keep living, keep loving, keep hopping despite every reason not to. Binta leaned against Kin, her mother's hand warm in hers, and thought, This is what freedom feels like. Not the absence of danger, not the end of struggle, but the presence of love strong enough to face whatever came next. Together. 6 months later. Binta stood in her graduation gown, nursing degree finally in hand, Kin and her mother cheering from the audience. The past months had been intense, testimony, trials, recovery. Di-young had been sentenced to life without parole. Mrs. Choi had received 25 years. Park Jae-hun had died in prison, an apparent suicide that no one believed was accidental. But Amara's testimony had freed 43 women and identified over 200 more. The International Tribunal was still working, still pursuing leads, still fighting. And Kin's foundation was growing, partnering with organizations worldwide to provide real support for survivors. After the ceremony, as they celebrated at their new home, A secure but warm house in Osaka where all three of them lived. Binta's phone buzzed. A message from Yuna found her. My sister. She's coming home next month. Thank you for everything, for being brave enough to care. Binta showed Kin, who smiled. See, we're not just surviving, we're building something bigger than ourselves. We're building a family, Amara corrected, bringing out a cake she'd made. Jollof rice cake, fusion cuisine that made them all laugh. Not the family we were born into, but the one we chose. That night, after Amara had gone to bed, Kin and Binta stood on their balcony overlooking Osaka's lights. Do you ever regret it? Binta asked. Walking away from everything, the power, the money, the name. Kin pulled her close. I regret nothing. That life was a cage. This, he gestured at their modest home, at the city beyond, at the life they'd built. This is freedom. What happens next? Next we live, really live. We work, we heal, we help others heal. We fight when we need to and rest when we can. He kissed her forehead. And eventually, if you want, we make our own family, one built on love instead of obligation. Binta's heart swelled. I'd like that. Yeah. They stood together in the warm night, two people who'd survived impossible odds, watching the city lights twinkle like stars. Behind them, Amara hummed in her sleep, safe for the first time in 20 years. Around them, a foundation of hope spread wider every day, catching those who'd fallen and helping them stand again. And ahead of them was everything they'd fought for, messy, beautiful, imperfect, and absolutely theirs. But in the shadows of Osaka's underworld, someone watched the house with calculating eyes. Someone who remembered the Choi name. Someone who believed that debts, especially blood debts, were never truly settled. Someone who was just getting started.